Cyrus, thank you very much for your time this morning. Let's talk about what this means. Is this as important as the stock move dictated yesterday? We did see a sharp drop in the shares of Facebook on the heels of those Dow Jones headlines.
Yeah, I think it's a very important move, but it's one move in a series of moves that we think we expect to see during the course of 2020 in terms of regulation against big tech. This concerns data privacy, which is one of the biggest issues. It could invoke some antitrust laws, but really the big issue that at the moment today is that antitrust law is not in a fit state to regulate the internet industry. And that's because antitrust law looks after protecting consumers and encouraging innovation. And, when Facebook gives a service for free to consumers, they could argue actually that there's no antitrust case. So the antitrust regulators need to take a different angle.
So let's talk about that different angle then. How exactly does antitrust legislation or antitrust framework need to evolve to then look at big tech through the right lens?
Yeah. So big tech has been, or big tech as it relates to the internet, has been essentially unregulated for a very long time since the internet was developed. And part of that reason for light touch regulation was to allow innovation in the internet. Now the biggest companies in the world are basically internet companies. So one of the things regulators have to do is change the way they look at a market. Instead of looking at, say, the advertising market, which Facebook is in, they need to look at control of data. Facebook, it doesn't just dominate a market in a traditional sense, it dominates data. So for example, Facebook, like Google and other internet ecosystems, they have developed an app which controls the user interface, it controls the user's personal data, and it controls the software code on which that data runs. And all of that is on its own cloud. And what that means is that innovation is discouraged because Facebook's competitors cannot get hold of that data, and customers themselves are probably pricing that data wrong because Facebook is making supernormal profits.
So let's talk about that pricing. Is there a world now in which we have to then look at the economics of data, how much it's worth, what it's worth to companies, what it's worth to me as a consumer or a user of some of these big tech platforms?
Yeah, I think the traditional regulatory penalty is a fine or or a remedy, or a breakup. But I think neither of those will work. I mean, Facebook was fined by the FTC $5 billion in July, and the share price actually went up. I don't think the U.S. government will allow the breakup of big tech because they need big tech to combat China in next-generation technologies like 5G, AI, blockchain, and so on, both economically, to maintain their power, and militarily. So I think the key is really, breaking up the control of data that companies like Facebook and Google have. And one of the ways you can do it is the way suggested by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, which in his solid open source software, which is basically you decouple the data, so my data on Facebook, from the app. And you allow the user to control where the data sits and who can access that data. Because at the moment, if I leave Facebook, then I lose all my friends' network on Facebook and all the data I have on Facebook, and Facebook still holds it. Really, data is a human right. At least in Europe, we have legislation like GDPR to legislate against that. And that means the consumer should be in charge of the data they have on Facebook, be allowed to use it, to move it.